Namaho Bill. Aho. Leo Jebel of Nunaha. We got mostly to Namaho Hunter to Shakulewak. Let me talk with Peter. Omani Wakakena, Nishosha Ahe, Lecture Tawa Hinajina, Wopila, Ake Prache. I bet to kill Dago, who he walked like a killer. But Duane Dokita Wahuki. Tukashila, some Tukashila, Tana Ochicha Kapiko, Hair Chasheki Head Hawako. Tukashila, some Tukashila ki Ogle ki Lena Hecha, Lil Awahi. Le Kroata, Makocho, Germany, Alpi, what Chasheki Hecha Ewa, now Ogle. Umaki le Itoka Gatake, Makocho, we try to Dana, Arizona, Hecha Tucson Killer, Mizuma Hecha Heka, Ewa Niti Ota Hecha Nakuyu Happy. Ciao. Autre Kaya Imanchaka, Tukashla Sam Tukashla Kile Chichaki, Tukashla Wayawan, Dan Halloween Berchap, Hechi Chachmaya, and Uji Julie Good. Grandma Julie Good here at Kukuki winter card keeper one Baptiste Good at one Ija Hitama. Ocha le Tukashla Waki at Kukuki le Iwoglake. Tukashla Kile Kakia Tropiki Hill. Wana to Otuma Hewa, Ogle, Nebraska, Hitcha Kiela. That blue water, Hitcha Hek here. As Okichi said, Lakota ki Wichaka Sotapi, Terchi. 1851 treaty Wakakapiko had 3 years in the last year. Oyuka Tukashla Le la chikala. Chikala hokshila. Oyuka wana wichasha wa akichita umcha wa he harni chamo he. Lakota kilana takumo tepleska wa Moses ka wikshemna la. Wa he otechi keko. He Kata was he Kakia, Missouri, state of Missouri, Opta, Makocha Opta, Waggy Church, Hiapi. You can held Otoma Owacheki, which Asha, one not to take the little Nakakia, I guess state where Utah, church to go, LDS, Mormons get hina. In St. Joseph, Missouri, Nebraska, Opta Hiapi. Oyuka, Patebelesko, John Fabri, Lazatra, Akiska, Iaka, Yustron Ayapi. Oyuka Takwa, Yushin, Laka, Wika, Yupsakina, Napchena, Lakota, Hel, Tipiki, Hel, Ohangia. Oyuka, Lakota, Oyispapina, Dokish Washichu here, Hewig, the Aprepi, Yuka, Umaki Washichu Okaka, and Tebleska ni Tawa, Kakin, Lakota Tipik, oh, yeah. So Dokish, Eikik Jukte, Yukchape, Yuka, Umaki Iwagla, Kena, yet Tebleska ki, Husani Shicha Ayacha, join it. Dokia Uyapiki, unique Disney. Ito Krashnipo, Ablustak de Yeah. We can Chisni Lakotaki, Waya Buffaloki Ota, Wichaka Sotana. Ye, Abokipsni. Which Washichika Tegaska Chisni Hunters. Hunters Uyutapik de Abi. Chakatapi. Yuka. Washichu Chashaki Lekakia for Lermi, honey. Então a uma wichasha que ai khatam. Le wichasha que le la kota na ushwichaki la na hap te bleshko wichako hetwa e hapi. Cha yok pishni. Cha akichi taki na wichaka ke hiupo prebiaska heglionikre. E hanishli ktebna tebiapi ash hekteke gichi. Oyukha Washichu wichasha kele akichita o Lieutenant Grattan wakchikta ihuni. Na Grattan le Lieutenant hesha ash la sami chikta shi. Chala e passe. Wichasha doaka le pteglesha le ktepiki hena wicha chikta. Ithacha ki hiya. Wichako wakishni. Hena oyate Oziata che è upi. Oika igracia se che na ha. Kakya hebi ekta akichite na aprena jibi. Ona ikta wa huni na ha. Wichowe wa punkte. Now e prehata. Wichaku tapore. Oika hel Wichasha Chajeki conquering bird job. Hell Lieutenant Chiwoglakai. Oyuka waji ake etkehu. Oyuka ayutacha. Yugata na. How Tokish akich te hena now yukcha. Na. Lakota vichaktepi. Dona na prepi. Dona na prepi. Dona uichais papi. Na chipi na takuko you have na you are na khiape. Oyuka some ya hu lechek te hakle na chipi na ish takuko you happy na chipi cha oich happy. Yuka te hawa you have chukte kha yokrati hoshila wala chikala inachme. Cha hoshila ke ichupi. Dokish katerkte such as echupsni. Ithacho he ijuna le duachi chave. He ithacho wa tukimaza echicha. Iron shalet hachicha. Cha hektaka wichakabi. Hoxila ke he ichahe. Oyeka hoxila ke mato heklecha chaje yuha. Cha he takashla sam takashla mikwa. I wanted to share a little bit about these two shirts and the way how I came about them. If I go back a little ways, I went to the Catholic boarding school in St. Francis for 13 years. 13 years of my life in there. And right after high school in the late 60s, there was no work. We weren't academically prepared to succeed in higher education. At the boarding school, they taught us menial labor, carpentry, mechanics, bakery, laundry, machine shop, all of these things. So the only choice I had with it, because the draft was on. Kolawa, he got drafted. Wapi Makipaso. He said, look at this, I'm getting drafted. I said, what are you going to do? He said, Takobri to Mama Nikta. I said, I gotta go in. Atewaki, World War II Heloka. So he won't let me get drafted in. So he was, he said, come with me. I gotta go to Rapid. So Rapid City. Hell, recruiter was Ogle copy. About 2 hours later, you can wap Chaje Go Army Buddy program. So Vietnam Tawa Galina ha Colorado station in Mapi. Waglin ka Misukala, why Amo Yatiki. Как я сад коректа, тук те воишки опи. AIM was getting pretty active by that time, in 72, 73, around the Rosebud over Pine Ridge. And my younger brother joined him. So I came home from the service, stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado. I said, "You're supposed to be in college. What the hell are you doing?" "We're doing things, brothers." I said, "I know it. Every time I come in the day room, you guys are on the TV. The AIM movement's doing all kinds of things." He said, "You need to join us." I said, "I'm in the Army. I'm in the Army." But he said, "Well, take me to this AIM rally. Mother Butler, Rapid City. Chehechak Shiwai. Vika Hecha, Anahukta Noaja. Dennis Banks, Hecha Woglaka. Yukatako Ewa Kitana Yamak Pishni. I listened to Dennis Banks. He was talking up there at the podium, and he said, "You see that drunken Indian man standing on the street corners of today's cities. That drunken Indian man is making a very profound statement saying, I would rather drink myself to death than to conform to live the ways of the white man. Drink yourself to death. Let Vietnam to Waglini, you come." I came back from Vietnam. I was a drug addict and I was an alcoholic. And I had to deal with that. And was he telling me it was okay for me to drink myself to death? Yeah. My grandma told me I was somebody. I was important. She said, "You see all of them stars up there? Every one of them is important. Just as you are. You're just a little tiny speck here. But all of those stars, this world, it needs you. And you need it. That's how important you are. That's how important you are." She always reminded me that I was somebody, that was important in my life. So I said, drink myself to death. That's not what I want to do. So I went back to the Army, Fort Carson. One day I came in and there they were on TV again. Every time I came in, they were on that monitor. The American Indian movement has now occupied the tiny hamlet of Wounded Knee. They're in Wounded Knee now. So I had a battle going on inside of me. Who the hell am I? Who the hell am I? Do I belong to my people that are again surrounded in Wounded Knee? Or do I belong to this man's army whose uniform I'm wearing that are pointing weapons at my people? Who the hell am I? I had to make a decision. I belong to my people. So I left. Back and forth. Every time they caught me and put me in a stockade for a week, back to my unit, White Cap take me downtown. Each and every time until 74. When Wounded Knee was over, they caught up with me. You owe us a year and 9 months, but you can finish that in prison. They court-martialed me and sent me to Leavenworth. But I didn't stay in there very long. Story of my life, I'm always getting kicked out of places. They kicked me out of prison. They kicked me out of prison too. That was because, kind of like what's going on with this U.S. government now. Many of us remember Tricky Dicky, Watergate. Nixon either had to step out of office or be impeached. When he stepped up, the next president, Gerald R. Ford, stepped in and gave Nixon a full pardon. Slapped him on the wrist and said, "Go behave yourself." But to appease the masses of American people, he had to do something. So he looked into prison there and he says, if you are in here just to that one offense, no other offenses, just that one offense, you were not where you were supposed to be. the president's giving you a full pardon, you can go home. So they kicked me out of prison. So I went home and that guard was laughing at me, taking me to the gate. He said, I don't know what the hell good that pardon will do you. You'll probably never get to work for the U.S. government. So I said, you can keep your damn government. I'm going home to my people. And I came home and I remained home since then. And I never participated in, I never regretted my decision. That was a choice I made, and I have to live with that. If they judge me and criticize me, that's their thoughts. I won't let that get to me. I made the decision that I have to live with for the rest of my life, and I don't regret it. Because in growing up and coming back and finding out, when I was in Vietnam, I was thinking about it when I was in prison. There was a man who showed me an MPC, military payment certificate, like dollar bills. I said, look at this $10. There's an Indian chief on there. So I looked at it. He said, you know who that is? That's my great-grandfather. They were using his image again, this grandfather of mine. His image was on a 14-cent postage stamp. His image was used on that $10 certificate. He was on a $5 bill before they switched it to Abraham Lincoln. So he was quite a controversial chief, an orator during his time. He born in 1850. By the time that treaty with the Lakota in 1851, it only lasted 3 years. When the Latter-day Saints wagon trains were going across Nebraska, there was a $10 cow that was tied on the back of one of their wagons. It must have got stung by a deer fly or something. So it jumped and it broke that rope, ran into that Lakota village, and the Lakota caught it. But they held it there. Those other wagon train people said, hey, your cow broke loose, ran into that village. He checked his livestock and he said, that cow was going lame. That's why we were pulling it along, but it never will make it to where we're going, so don't worry about it. But when they got to Fort Carson and he was replenishing all those Washicho, they were harassing him. Hey, look at this Indian lover. He was feeding the Indians. So they were just making remarks at him, so he felt bad about it, that he got this Lieutenant Grattan, go with me, I gotta go get that cow back. They already killed it and they having a feast, because by then they had pretty much wiped out our way of life. The Ptewa out there. They couldn't find buffalo, there was no deer, no elk. So they had that cow for a feast. Well, Lieutenant Grattan came back with that man and says, if you can't give me back the cow, I want the men who killed it. And Chief Conquering Bear said, these are relatives from the northern people. I don't have no jurisdiction over them. He told his troops on the hill, if you hear me holler now, open fire. Conquering Bear was standing there talking, and there was another chief that was coming over and he waved, how? And those men thought he said, now. And they began to open fire. The Lakota, they had some of their best warrior societies there. Two Strike was there. He Dog was there. Crazy Horse was there, just as a young boy. They saw what happened. They wiped out Lieutenant Grattan and his whole company. Word got back to the War Department in Washington. We got Indian trouble. Get out there. They sent Harney out with 3 armies. Harney came and told, Conquering Bear died in that first one. Little Thunder was the next one. Little Thunder, you're giving the white people a hard time. They sent me to straighten you out. But I'm a fair man. I tell you what, prepare for battle. Little Thunder said, I won't fight. You know what that means? On his teepee pole there was a white flag. I'm at peace with the Army. Arnie's just said, Little Thunder, I didn't come out here for nothing. Prepare for battle. At 5 a.m., September 3rd, he attacked Little Thunder's camp, massacring men, women, and children, killed over 1,000 horses. They ravaged that camp. They went in, started helping themselves. Lieutenant Warren was commissioned by the George High Foundation in New York City. Get me artifacts. I want artifacts. Warren went through that village, taking 2 of everything. Under one buffalo robe, they found a 4-year-old little boy still alive. Back then, the policy was kill them all. Nits make lice. But they let him live. Whose boy is this? Tuƞkas. Nowadays, the relatives call it Tuƞkas maza, but the old word was for shell was Tuƞkas. So that's Iron Shell's son. They gave him back. He grew up. He grew up and he became my great-grandfather, Hollow Horn Bear. These are 2 of his leadership shirts and what he'd done for his people. This first one, my grandfather, his oldest son, my grandfather who raised me, used to tell stories of his father. And when they brought him back, he said, I was 18 years old. They brought him back he died in Washington, D.C. They brought him back by train to Chicago, Omaha, Valentine, Nebraska, and out there on the prairie. My grandpa and his siblings said, open the coffin. The agent says, no, it won't be a pretty sight. He's been dead a long time. But they insisted, open the coffin. When they opened it, all his regalia was gone. He was dressed like a missionary. My grandfather was silenced. If he was to speak up and say things, he's a troublemaker, cut him off. He had family to feed. People couldn't speak up because you would get punished. You would get no help. Other situations in my family history that I could probably talk about, some of his children that were severely punished in the boarding school, such as I was punished in the boarding school. But I never forgot who I was and where I came from my teachings. This is what I want to implore to all of my peoples and the dialects. Find your history. These things are attainable back. This shirt here, in my search, it ended up in Germany. I prayed about it. I talked about it for years. Even a sacred pipe of his that came back 35 years ago. I've got 2 of his chanupa and 2 of his shirts. And there's a pipe bag in Stuttgart, Germany. That I'm waiting for the right moment to say, I'm ready to go after it. I gotta feel it. I gotta know it in my heart that time is right. There's some friends over there that are kind of pushing me. You need to get going on this. Just be patient. I'll make the decision here. So the time came. This shirt was the one that was taken off of his body when he was in Washington, D.C. Somehow I was over in Germany. The museum didn't want to give it back. It took years. I had to prove hereditary lineage, descendancy, and finally, well, there's no human remains on there. This hair, isn't that horsehair? I said, my grandfather and his people didn't have corral and head and shoulders to do their hair, and the hair was coarse. I said, that is human hair. When the creators of this shirt were making this shirt, they'd take a locket of their hair and say, put my hair on this shirt, for this man speaks for me. He represents me. So this is the hair of my other grandfathers and my grandmothers, whom he represented. So it took a while, and the curator in Frankfurt, Germany, they finally agreed it needs to come home. They don't have the NAGPRA law over there, but I was persistent and I stayed with it. This one too, I heard about it, and I was wondering how they could have got this. I went down there. This one was in a museum called the Emerald Foundation, about 60 miles east of Tucson, Arizona. I asked the curator, how did they get this? He said it came from the Museum of Natural History in New York City. It turned out there was in the George High Foundation, he had a board of trustees. There was a man by the name of William Shirley Fulton. He was on that board. He was going to retire. And so he was also an artifact collector. He traded some of his artifacts for this shirt and took this shirt and retired and moved to Dragoon, Arizona. I first heard about it and I asked about it when I went to New York back in 1996, 97. The Smithsonian was moving out of New York, and my mentor is a humble man named Joe Eagle Elk, a medicine man. And through all of the ceremonies and places and things I'd done with him, the Smithsonian asked me, in all of your work with him, did he ever help you did you help him handling human remains or ceremonial artifacts? I said, yeah, we've done some of that work. He says, they gave us your name. We want you to come to New York for 2 or 3 weeks. We're packaging everything, but people in the Smithsonian are a little leery about handling human remains and ceremonial artifacts. If you could come and work with us. So I went and I asked about this. He said, there's a native man by the name of Terry Snowball Yakima from up in Washington State. He said, I packaged some leggings that had hollow horn bear on them. I think that shirt is here also. They digitized everything they had. He said, oh, sure we have it. And he couldn't find a shirt. He was looking on a Rolodex, and here underneath there was a card. And that card talked about that William Shirley Fulton, and that this shirt was traded to him. I thought I came that close to finding it. So my wife being from Arizona, I took her back to Mama, and my youngest daughter and we went down by Tucson. We went to see the shirt, and I told the curator, I hope you realize that next time I come, I'm going to be expecting to take this home with me. We thought about that. We thought about that before we invited you to come down. I says, you took about 6 months since I wrote you, requested an invitation. I figured you were researching me. So I took it a liberty to research you. And she said, the NAGPRA law says that through private museums, private foundations are exempt from the NAGPRA. I said, yeah, but you didn't read between the lines. Between the lines, it also says, any private foundation or museum that has ever applied for and or received state or federal funding has to comply with NAGPRA. He says, wow. said, you were researching me, so I took the liberty of researching you, and you applied for it, and you received 3 times federal funding. You have to comply with NAGPRA. When they were distraught on here. Well, it's going to have to go to the Board of Regents, or the board. I says, I'm a patient person. I can wait. So we waited another almost, 20 years? Almost another 20 years. My patience is unlimited. I've waited for her all my life. So don't rush into those guys. The right one will come. So it paid off. And this one here, the curator, I took my staff. I started an immersion school in St. Francis about 3-4 years ago. And one of the things that I was really encouraging my staff was, that means this is a cup. Says, don't translate. These kids are smart. You just tell them what it is. TPR, total physical response. They'll understand. But there's a couple that always wanted to translate. It says, you're defeating the whole purpose. So I took them down to Ely, the Indigenous Language Institute in Santa Fe. And there we put them through some training. I got a call from the curator, and he said, I told him I was going to be in Santa Fe, and he says, the board has agreed to bring the shirt back to you. So if you're in Santa Fe, we'll bring it up there. And so they brought this shirt back to me. So both shirts, through my prayers and my belief and my patience, came home on their own, such as those 2 chanupa that I have. The 2 pipes. We've been using one pipe of his for 35 years, and that's what we use of his at the Sundance. I cannot be the kind of a man that Halo Hornbeer was. Can't walk in his moccasins. But I can do one thing as he would have done with this chanupa, pray for his people. And so for 35 years now, we've been using his chanupa at our Sundance. And these years, I've always felt that somehow he's guiding me. Because little by little, more and more things are showing up and are coming back. As long as I stay true to myself, first of all, in my sincerity, in what I believe, in who I am, and what is possible, and what's not possible, and acceptance. My mentor always, he took me into a lodge. Yonik piece leja. Yomak piece. Vachenka ita lila yonik piece leja. Woye utke akya, na chaiva pakta utke akya. Olo yaklo ya. Na wocheki ye chakya. Na ite akta yushka. Ichaya yonik piece. Yomak piece. Ashtakuwa yeksikte. Watonsna ogna leta yahi yakina khaki. Ito yakeki inajna nitukashla ki anyutakta. Le uchasha ke le oini timata ki hena wichak ya ogla kahu. Cha matueki na wichak wagla ki kimia sawake wachikte ki hecha. Away my egle. Ogle wa ituna ogle wahikpe waji okuteo. Na her wahikpe kiri marketing deshni. As taku to hakte. Ogna mit khawichi ukchi zavna ha. Ogna wa pakich dan ki glachik te seche. Ish wa khanj mit khaki waji. Has la lila kuje. Ish owayo ekta taktoka. is ohiishnin. Is ithatsa washi chamaki matoichlicha oko numa chiustam de wicha chola. Is umakia kina niglista kiglayo wachin chikdishni. Tak to kakte. Zani Tuņkas a new tak den ha howana doshke chukta ho. Vichasha kele doshke chukta ho. Tak to kakele. Takuma chana ya chinata lecha itoka otoma chikala wa hel. Min jajan na we prekapi. Maji ya chana latkina ha. Nit khashigina no chita vichaka la wayaki. Is Washikta Yagnina Ithacha here, Kchigreches Oyaki. Hana Tokashi Chanuyaki. As Dako Wichak Chanuya Chikteki here. Tiwa eta Odoala, Makamani Yai, Doketia, Makamani Yayo. Ogla Ekta Manuaki, no we look some days. Let your Manilia Una Bahawazia Kamaka Oyaki. Nalena. Takwe, na leche tu ango. Na chunupa yekchu na oinita yaku. Takashla, takwe. Takwe na amalu. Na takashla. Wichak and Ogle. Na wahipaki has been slotikta. Na taku cash, kahotana yekta. As niya unki iotogna watoshna. My mentor told me one time in the lodge, he had me set it up. I said, it's ready, but nobody's here. He said, no, it's just gonna be you and me. So we got in, we did one round. He said, Tashi, you look happy. Yeah, I'm happy. You look happy. Everything's good? Yeah. You must be happy. You hung your offerings, you put out your tobacco ties, you sang your songs, you made your prayers. Everything's in its place. Yeah, everything's good. Your wife, she's good. How about the kids? They're okay, they're good. Your job, it's going good. That's good. So you're content, everything's good, everything's in its place. But I just want to tell you that during the course of your life, there's going to be times when you come out of here, or you don't know where it'll happen. But grandfather and creator is going to look upon you and say, I wonder if Duane was sincere with what he said in the lodge. Now, Takashila knows my sincerity, but he has an Ogle, maybe we could call it an angel. Put an arrow into Duane's life. It's not an arrow, that arrow is not going to kill me. But something happens. Something goes wrong. Maybe I get into a big, terrible argument with my wife and she just wants to pack up and go home. Or my kid's been getting in trouble at school and I didn't know about it. Or they've been missing school. Or they haven't been doing their work. Something is going on and I didn't know about it. Or my boss says, Duane, I'm going to lay you off 2 weeks of no pay. Or the boss says flat out, says, you're fired. Something is going to happen. And grandfather says, what's he going to do now? How is he going to deal with this? The easy thing for you to do is go down to the white man's town down there. That store that sells those bottles. Get one of those bottles. Drink that up and go home and beat your wife and children for making your life miserable. Or go pick a fight with your boss for firing you. Those are really easy things to do. The right thing to do, get away from your family. You're lucky where you live in the country. You can walk out on the prairie. Walk way out there. Think about it. Or come out here to the forest and sit on a hill. Don't humble you. Just sit out here and think about what's going on. and then come back to the lodge. Load your chanupas. Grandpa, it hurts. It hurts and it hurts bad, and I don't know what's going on. And Tuṟkas said, he was sincere. And that arrow comes out. But be mindful that through the course of your life, that arrow is going to come back every so often. Things will happen. Accept these arrows as a test of your sincerity to a way of life you've chosen. Because you will be tested, all of us. And sometimes you're going to feel like you're the only one getting an arrow. Because look at him over there. He's always smiling. He looks good. Looks happy all the time. It's because some of us have learned to put on masks. I heard this earlier today in talk. We wear these masks. I said, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. When inside we're hurting. We're crying on the inside. And we don't want nobody to know. So we wear these masks. Sincerity is to bring those out. Those stones. No eyes, no ears. But they hear you. They see you. They know what you're going through. Creator knows. And sometimes those arrows go in deep, such as when I lost my only biological son. My heart was ripped in two. That arrow ripped my heart apart. I couldn't take it. Middle of the night, I'd wake up screaming, crying. Why? It wasn't alcohol or drugs or gangs. He loved life. He was tending hides. He wanted a good Lakota way of life, and he had a sickness that the Washichu men couldn't help him. Even the medicine men could not figure out what he was going through. And he had a seizure, and the doctor said. He was home alone. The wife went to work. The kids went to school, one to daycare. Home alone, he had a seizure, face first in that plush carpet in his living room, and he suffocated to death. My only son. If I had other sons, maybe it would have been easier, but he was the only one I had. And that arrow went deep. So, all of us have those arrows. We have a way of life that was given to us through the Pteoyate, through our ancestors, through all the Pejuta. They're ours. We're coming back to those ways. Let's be sincere about them as we accept them back. Sincere in our ways of life. We got a lot of blending to do, having to develop and work these white man's ways of things around us. We can do it. We can do it. It's for these little ones like this Takosha. I was sitting there, didn't ask for it. She just came up to me and gave me a hug. And that's the most beautiful blessing a grandfather can get when the little one walks up to you. There is purity and innocence in our hands, in our midst. How do we influence that purity and that innocence? When that purity and innocence comes to you and gives you a hug, that's a healing. And we all need that. We all need that. Oh, I tell you, I've got these, and I may take up to the journey and the design on this. I have it all written in the story. It's going to be too long to explain all of the work, the stars for the Sundance. But his father, Iron Shell, his work, identical design. It's a family design that Iron Shell wore, but his was done in quill work. And that shirt is at the Journey Museum. So I've talked to the curator and I said, I want to put Iron Shell and his son's shirt together and perhaps do a voiceover presentation and talk about my legacy of my great-grandfathers there so the people can understand these things are doable. We all have ancestors out there whose things are, we don't know where they're at. Through our prayers, through our belief in ourselves and in our ways, these things can be brought home. It builds pride in yourself and saying, he went through a lot, went through quite a lot in decision making, but because of him, I am here. And I'm 70, I'll be 75, and I still feel like I got another 75, so I'm gonna go for it. Well, pila mai pala bitake.